Woke culture presents itself as a movement for justice and equality. But what it truly represents is an assault on freedom, reason, and truth. It divides, silences, and intimidates, all while claiming to unite and empower. Let's unpack what woke culture really is and why it's one of the greatest threats to our civilization today. To understand woke culture, we must first understand its core premise, that every society is nothing more than a power struggle between oppressor and oppressed. Every institution, tradition, or belief is evaluated through this narrow lens. If it doesn't align with woke ideology, it's labeled as oppressive and must be torn down. Think about the language of woke culture. Terms like privilege, microaggressions, and equity dominate conversations. At first glance, these words might seem harmless. 5 or 6 years ago, when I first started to look into this stuff, I thought it was a sort of sick joke. In practice, though, these words are tools of control. These words force people to self-censor and prioritize feelings over facts. Language is one of the primary battlegrounds for woke culture because language shapes how you think. When you redefine words, you don't just change conversations. You change the very fabric of reality. Consider the current obsession with pronouns. It's no longer enough to acknowledge their biological sex. You're now required to affirm subjective identities. Refuse, and you're labeled as hateful or ignorant. But here's the irony. Woke culture claims to celebrate diversity while rejecting diversity of thought. Disagree, and you're silenced. Challenge the narrative, and you're canceled. This isn't tolerance. This is tyranny. This brings us to the issue of history. Woke culture is rewriting the past to fit its agenda. Statues are torn down, historical figures are vilified, and school curriculums are revised. The argument is that our history is too flawed, too tainted by oppression to be celebrated. But this approach is intellectually dishonest. Even when they are correct about figures in history, history is not a morality play. It's a record of human, history. The same people who they claim built oppressive systems also laid the groundwork for freedom and prosperity. Take America's founding fathers. Were they flawed? Absolutely. But their vision of liberty and self-governance has inspired generations around the globe, regardless of whatever their personal views were and whatever we think of them now. Woke culture ignores this nuance because it thrives on division. It teaches people to view their country, their institutions, and even their neighbors with suspicion and resentment. It doesn't seek reconciliation. It seeks revolution. Nowhere is this more evident than in the obsession with systematic oppression. Woke ideology claims that every disparity in society is proof of discrimination. If one group earns more, succeeds more, or achieves more, the system must be rigged. But correlation does not equal causation. Disparities are not always the result of discrimination. People make different choices, prioritize different goals, and face different challenges and circumstances. For example, the gender pay gap is often cited as proof of sexism. But when you account for factors such as career choice, life habits between men and women, hours worked, and experience, this gap often disappears. Now, I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but it makes it significantly less than they claim. The same is true for racial disparities. Thomas Sowell is one of the most brilliant economists. He has spent decades dismantling the myth that inequality is always the result of racism. He shows that culture, family structure, and personal responsibility play a far greater role in shaping outcomes than discrimination. Shouldn't we do something to change this culture? Absolutely. But just a wild guess, government is not it. But woke culture isn't interested in this level of analysis. It prefers sweeping generalizations and simplistic narratives because they're easier to weaponize. If you can convince people they are victims, you can tell them what to do. If you can label entire groups as oppressors, you can justify punishing them. This is why woke culture is so dangerous. It doesn't just distort reality and come up with a completely idiotic version of things. It undermines the very principles that allow a free society to function. It replaces individual responsibility and freedoms with collective guilt, merit with entitlement, and reason with emotion. Let's move to our phenomenal education system. Schools have become breeding grounds for woke ideology. Critical race theory and gender ideology are no longer fringe ideas. They're mainstream. Children are being taught to view themselves and others through the lenses of race, gender, and privilege. Critical race theory, for example, obviously doesn't promote unity. But what does it teach? It teaches division. It teaches children that they're either oppressors or oppressed, based solely on their skin color. This is not progress. This is regression. It's a return to tribalism, where people are judged not by the content of their character, as Martin Luther wished for, but by their group identity. Gender ideology is equally harmful. Children are being told that biology is irrelevant, that they can choose their gender, that they could be anything that they want to be really, and that anyone who disagrees with them is a bigot. Schools are hiding gender transitions from parents. Let me ask you this. What sort of sick society undermines parental authority with favor of ideological conformity? The answer is simple: a society that seeks control. The family is the cornerstone of any free society. That's where the values are passed down from generation, where independence is nurtured, and where individuals find their first line of defense against tyranny. Woke culture knows this, and that's why it seeks to weaken and destroy the family at every turn. Woke culture isn't about lifting people up. It's about breaking us down. And then there's religion, particularly Christianity. Woke culture portrays Christianity as oppressive, outdated, and intolerant. Here's the reality. Christianity has been one of the most powerful forces for human dignity, freedom, and compassion in history. It emphasizes objective truth, individual responsibility, and inherent worth in every person. These values stand in direct opposition to the relativism and collectivism of woke ideology. Now, let's talk about economics. This is where woke culture has made significant inroads in the past couple of years. The push for equity over equality is perhaps the most dangerous economic idea to come out of woke ideology. Equality means providing everyone with the same opportunities. Equity, on the other hand, means guaranteeing everyone equal outcomes. But obviously, you can't guarantee equal outcomes without destroying merit. You have to punish success and reward failure. You have to take from those who produce and give to those who don't. This doesn't just kill individual incentive, it destroys everything about our society. As Milton Friedman once famously said, a society that puts equality before freedom will get neither. A society that puts freedom before equality will get a high degree of both. Woke culture ignores this wisdom because it's not invested in freedom. It's interested in control. This is where Woke Incorporated by Vivek Ramaswamy becomes relevant. He exposes how corporations have adopted woke rhetoric not out of genuine concern for social justice, even a misleading social justice cause, but as a shield against accountability. By aligning themselves with woke causes, they deflect criticism and consolidate power. It's honestly a brilliant strategy, but it's also deeply evil. Ramaswamy calls this moral hijacking of capitalism. Instead of competing on the basis of innovation or on efficiency, companies now compete on who can virtue signal the loudest. They adopt diversity quotients, promote environmental, social, and governance scores, also known as ESGs, and plaster slogans on their products, all while engaging in exploitation behind the scenes. This isn't capitalism, this is cronyism. And it's one of the many ways that woke culture is reshaping and destroying our economy, our politics, and our society. Woke culture isn't about trying to change how we think. It's about trying to change who we are. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can either accept the lies of woke culture, or we could stand up for the truth. We could stand up for freedom and common sense. But standing up isn't easy. Woke culture thrives on fear. It uses cancel culture to intimidate dissenters. But here's the good news. People are waking up. And the cracks in woke culture are showing. And more people are questioning the narrative. And that's why they're doubling down. Because they know time is running out for them. Remember, the moment you stop caring about the opinions of the mob, that's the moment you are free. Freedom is contagious. When one person speaks out, others find the courage to do the same. So here's my challenge to you. Don't be silent. Don't let wokeness dictate your life. Speak the truth, not your truth, but the truth, even when it's unpopular. Stand up for your values, even when it's difficult. Don't let the fear of being canceled stop you from telling the truth. Because the fight against woke culture isn't just a cultural battle. It's a fight for the very nature of our society. It's a battle for our loved ones, for our kids, for our grandkids, for everyone that we hold dear. This is who we are fighting for. For our future, we need to stand up. Because if we don't, someday we might not be able to. Thank you. Hey, if you enjoyed this, share the video, like it, comment, or subscribe to Vanguard for Freedom for more content like this. We need to expose the lies of woke culture and fight for the freedom and values that made America and the rest of the free world great. Together, we can win this battle.